Hello, this is Paul Lucas, and I'd like to welcome you to my class in nature photography called Jumpstart Nature Photography. In this class, I'm going to help you develop skills, both aesthetic and craft skills, to take great nature photography in your own backyard. You don't have to travel far to get awesome photographs. This first presentation is just a quick introduction to what I plan to accomplish over the next series of video lessons. If you'd like to contact me, please feel free to email me at paul@jumpstartnaturephotography.com, and you can visit the website jumpstartnaturephotography.com. Of course, we'll start with a little introduction about myself. I'm a nature and landscape photographer based north of Chicago in Lake County. I am also an instructor in the area for nature and landscape photography. And I'm a big believer that you don't have to go far away to get really great and awesome landscape photographs. My work has been influenced by many different photographers, landscape photographers like Ansel Adams, environmental photographers like Eugene Auger and Harry Callahan, Paul Strand, and I've been really fortunate to work with Will Clay here in the Chicago area, a wonderful landscape photographer. And I really believe you don't have to travel very far to take good landscape photography. You can do it close to home in your own backyard, nature preserves, forest preserves, botanic gardens, arboretums. And I hope that this class will help you not only gain skills in nature and landscape photography, but also develop a greater appreciation for the natural beauty in your area and the environment around it. You can also see my work at paullucasphotography.com. And as I mentioned here, I'm happy to come to your library if you are in the Chicago area, or a photography club, or whatever that organization is. And I'd be glad to do a 2-hour overview of Jumpstart Nature Photography. So please email me at paul@jumpstartnaturephotography.com. I'm also available for classes and workshops. As I said, I'm an instructor here in the area. And if you want PDF copies of any of the presentations, please email me at paul@jumpstartnaturephotography. So the goals of this course outline are as follows. I know everybody likes to jump in and get started right away, so I'm going to do a longer presentation called First Field Session. And that will just give a quick overview to get you out in the field taking photographs today. And then we'll spend some time through a series of shorter video presentations on the craft of photography, composition, and the creative use of life. And also I'd like to offer critique sessions to everybody that's interested in having their work critiqued. That's one of the things I do in my classes when I teach here locally, that my students, I think they derive the most value out of the critique sessions. And we'll talk a little bit about that towards the end of this presentation. I'm going to keep this presentation short because this is an introduction. So you have to remember that photography is both, there's a craft aspect and an aesthetic aspect. The craft is, how do I take a good photograph? How do I make a proper exposure? What lenses do I use? How does the lens or my shutter speed or my ISO speed, all those things affect the aesthetic of my photograph? And the aesthetic, or the art of photography, is about composition. How do I enable that vision I see? What is a pleasing composition? What is a strong composition? And what are the things I do after I take the photograph? So composing in the field is very important, and we should always shoot with intent. Use the full frame if possible. We'll talk about that in the upcoming classes. But also, photographs right out of the camera, whether you're shooting in JPEG or RAW file formats, they look very flat. They don't look like what you've seen. So we're going to look at the things we do, some simple techniques to make those photographs to give it a 3D kind of feeling to it. The things you do to recreate your vision and what you see in the field. So remember, it takes time to learn and master both elements, both the craft and the aesthetic of photography. And you'll need lots of practice. You just got to get out in the field. There is no substitute for it. But the great thing is, if you're shooting digital today, you get feedback immediately. And the learning curve is much shorter than what you might have experienced in the past. You no longer have to take a photograph, send it off to someone to develop and print those photographs. You can immediately see it in the field. You can correct or try a different variety of different compositional ideas right there. And then when you get home, put them on your computer and see what you have. It's the learning curve. It's much faster. And remember, this is a journey. It's not a destination. There is no end goal that says you are a master photographer. Remember, have fun and don't get frustrated. It often can be frustrating where you see a compositional idea and you try and work it and you work it and it just doesn't work. And so maybe you have to, you see a compositional idea and you learn and say, try 3 or 4 shots, doesn't work, move on. Sometimes photography is like being a Cubs fan. So you wait and wait and wait to get that really great shot, and do a lot of, go to a lot of different locations and shoot them over and over and over again. So I'm going to try and help you to learn to see, compose, and expose good images in the natural world. And this again is both the craft, what lens to use, shutter speed, ISO, aperture, all those things we'll talk about in the craft, and the aesthetic. How do I make a good composition? What do I look for? What do I think of? And there's many different ways to approach this. This is the Paul Lucas way of doing things. So this is just, I'm hoping to give you a basic set of ground skills, on the ground that you can take and use and then grow from. And don't think that my one way is the only way to do it. This is a set of skills that I've developed that works for me. And I hope to pass those on and help to get you started quickly in developing both your craft and aesthetic. And for this goal, for our course, subjects can be anything from, an insect to a mountain, and we can include human objects. So I don't necessarily eliminate human-made objects in the photograph. So this is kind of the big tent version of landscape and nature photography. And remember, the goal is to enable you to see a vision. So the image has to please you first. That's the key thing. Find an image, a subject, a composition that pleases you. Because like much of art, photography is subjective. It's in the eye of the beholder. And as I said, it's a journey, not a destination, and you have to not get frustrated because we'll have different levels of success with our photographs. Sometimes we take snapshots. They end up looking like snapshots. It's okay. Maybe it's a documentary shot. It's a nice composition, well exposed, interesting, but it really documents the scene. Sometimes we create art that we might hang on the wall, or a winner, something, we could enter in a contest or give to our friends or maybe even sell. But always think of your photographs as I've learned something. Whether they're snapshots or art to hang in the wall, you always learn something from those photographs. And since we're out in nature and looking at landscapes and nature around us, take kind of a naturalist viewpoint of the world. To understand nature, become a naturalist. If you have the ability to go and study at a botanic garden or an arboretum or another kind of organization through Sierra Club or something like that, do that. Observe and study. Get books. Go to the library. All those things will help you to become a better landscape and nature photographer. We'll talk about the environment real quickly. We're almost to the end here. Just something I like to think about when in nature, right? We only take photographs and we leave only footprints, right? We don't want to harm any of the nature. We don't want to change it. If you bring things in, bring them out. If we need to do a little gardening, a little pruning is okay. Remove some debris around a plant or something, that's fine. But don't break or damage the plant or the environment around you, because other folks are going to want to come and enjoy that beauty and maybe even take photographs at that place. So critique sessions. So what is this critique session thing? So when I teach a class, we do lectures. All the presentations that you'll see in this video class series is going to come from my classroom presentations. And then the other part is students submit photos for critiques. And these are always positive and constructive critiques. There's nothing we're going to do to tear you down. There's no photograph that we can't learn from and find positive things and ways to make that photo better. So the way it'll work is you can send me, if you're interested in doing this, you send me 4 photos. I'll critique the photos via a YouTube session. I hope to get up to a weekly session. I'll discuss the composition. And then as I mentioned, when photographs come out of your camera, they're very flat. You're welcome to edit those photos in Lightroom or Photoshop or whatever you might use before you send them to me. Or if you just send them to me in their raw form out of the camera with minimal editing, maybe you want to do some cropping. Whatever you'd like to do, I would edit those photographs in Lightroom to show you my ideas on how the photograph might look, my vision for photography. And then when I'm done, I'll send you a copy of those photos back with my edits. And if you're interested in participating in the critique session, drop me a note at paul@jumpstartnaturephotography.com. So I think this is a really valuable part of this course. There's no charge for this. Send me the photographs and I'd be happy to critique them and share them online. Also, I will not allow, just FYI, public commenting on them because, again, the goal is to help you develop and learn as a photographer and to share your photographic experience with other folks on this journey. There's a great, I think one of the most valuable things that happens is this interaction, and maybe maybe eventually it'll evolve to some sort of, live Google Talk or something. We'll see. So some final thoughts about landscape and nature photography. Part of nature photography is just being there in the moment, just looking at what it is. Maybe you're not going to get a great photograph that day. The light's not right. It's too cloudy. You just can't find a good subject. But be there in the moment. Enjoy what you're doing, whether you're getting great photographs or not. And remember, this is a journey. This isn't something you're going to be mastering overnight. The digital photography capabilities today with digital cameras will help you to get through that learning curve much more quickly, but it's a journey. And your equipment doesn't know anything about either the craft or the aesthetic of the photography. It is a tool. It is an instrument for you to express your vision. How you use that equipment to make your vision, to realize your vision, that's up to you as a photographer. So the more you can learn about both the craft and the aesthetic of photography, the more skills and tools you'll have to realize your vision. And finally, I'd like to say, our last two comments. First off, it's not the camera, it's the photographer. You can make great photographs with any kind of camera. And whatever camera you have with you. It's really understanding how to use that equipment. Using a camera, more sophisticated cameras that have more manual controls, interchangeable lens, larger sensors, all those great gearhead things, those will help you. Sometimes it makes it easier to realize your vision. If you're working with a camera that has more limited capabilities, well, it's maybe more of a challenge, but that doesn't mean you can't make great photos. And the last thing I'd like to say is why landscape photography or nature photography, nature and landscape. I kind of use them interchangeably. I think it's a great place to start learning photography. First off, you can go out and do it by yourself, or you can do it with friends, and it's at your own pace. There's no big rush, to get that photograph done. I mean, the sky may change, the light might change, but it doesn't change that rapidly. It's not as if you're photographing people or automobiles or birds or moving objects or things that are in motion or depending on you or getting bored with while you're fiddling with your camera. You can go at your own pace. But the skills you develop, both the craft skills and the aesthetic skills, are going to help you in the long run towards any kinds of photography. If you want to branch out into architectural photography, if you want to branch out into street photography, portrait photography, documentary photography, any photography you want to do, the skills that you learn in this course, landscape and nature photography, will help you lessen that learning curve in those areas. So again, this is, the Paul Lucas vision of getting you started in nature photography, landscape photography. There's a lot of different ways to approach it. There's not right or wrong ways. This is just one way to help get you jump started. So that's the end of this first presentation. As I mentioned, I'm going to do a quick start, jump in the first field session next. And then after that, we'll start going through a series of short presentations and videos in the 5 to 10 minute range. Okay, I look forward to hearing from you soon, and good luck with your work out in the field.